Call the meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everyone to the May 17th, 2022 meeting of the Ann Arbor Parks Advisory Commission. This meeting is being held electronically to protect public health and safety due to the COVID-19 virus and to comply with orders issued by the governor, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and/or the Washtenaw County Health Department. We intend to conduct this meeting similarly to an in-person meeting. However, please be patient if there are technical issues. Public comment will be by telephone only. To speak during any of the public comment opportunities, please call 877-853-5247 or another of the published numbers and enter meeting ID 949-7173-0458. This information is also available on the published agenda, in the public notices section of the city website, and on the broadcast of this meeting on CTN channel 16, AT&T channel 99, and online at www.a2gov.org/watchctn and select government channel. And with that, we can call the roll. Josh, if you wouldn't mind doing that.
Yep. Commissioner Borgsdorf.
Please be patient with my technical issues. I am present.
Commissioner Kraut. Commissioner London.
Present in Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Marson.
Present in Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Morrison.
Present in Ann Arbor.
Commissioner O'Connell.
Present in Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Ramaswamy. Commissioner Skylas.
Present in Ann Arbor.
Councilmember Briggs.
Here in Ann Arbor.
Councilmember Grand.
Here in Ann Arbor.
You have a quorum.
All right, thank you very much. With that, we'll move to item 3 on our agenda, which is approval of the agenda. Before I ask for any additions or corrections, I think we had one earlier today, which is that we're going to strike section 6A from the agenda. The ice rink recap is going to be tabled until maybe next month, but we will not cover that item today. Are there any other additions or corrections to the agenda? All right, hearing none, we'll go on to the first public comment period. Each speaker is allowed 3 minutes to speak. And Kristen, do we have any callers?
There are no callers.
All right, thank you. So we'll move on to item 5, approval of the minutes. The minutes are contained in the packet, the minutes of last month's meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see who moved.
That was me, Larry.
Thanks, Larry. Motion by Larry. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Steve. Any discussion? All right, all in favor to approve the minutes, please say aye.
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 And all opposed, nay? All right, the motion approves. Thank you. A motion approved carries. We'll move on to presentations. As I mentioned, we are striking 6A this month. And so we'll move on to 6B, an ADA study by Altura. And I believe we have Scott Spooner with us to discuss it. And here he comes.
There I am.
Hi, Scott.
Hi. So some time ago, Hillary Hansel put out an RFP to look at the accessibility situation in our city parks, and staff reviewed 6 different companies, and they chose Altura Solutions. And Adam Furkjo brought Altura's proposal to PAC, and council approved the contract. And with that, Altura has started looking at our parks. And here to tell you more about what their plans are and what they've done already, Altura's founder Jesus Chuy Lardisabal and project manager Eileen Dryden. And I hope I didn't mess up your last name too much, Chuy.
No, we We joke that that's why my wife kept her maiden name. So, but thank you for the introduction. And Scott mentioned my name is Jesus or Chuy Latizaba, and I'm the principal with Altura Solutions, working on the project, and Eileen Dryden is the project manager. And we are an accessibility consulting firm, so all we focus on is ADA compliance. And we are excited to start the process for the Ann Arbor Parks Department. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Eileen and let her do, we have a quick presentation that we'll go through and then open it up to questions.
Sure. Hi. And we are going to share it now. Actually, let me do this.
I can share, Eileen. I think I've got it up.
Can anybody see my screen?
Not yet, I'm afraid.
Okay. Well,
Oh, here we go.
yes.
Yes. I think we have Jesus' screen.
Okay, good. Because mine's not working.
Well, I'll just go through the first couple of slides and then turn it over to Eileen. So as we mentioned, we are Altura Solutions, and we're excited to do the ADA Transition Plan project for the City of Ann Arbor Parks Department. And just as I mentioned earlier, a little bit about us. We are an accessibility team or a firm. We're headquartered in Austin, and we have over 15 years of experience helping our clients reach their ADA compliance goals. And I'll turn it over to Eileen.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Eileen Dryden here. I am the project manager for Altura Solutions for this project. I am excited to be working with Ann Arbor, and I cannot wait for our first visit, which is next week. It has been a long time since I've set foot in Michigan, and definitely the last time I was there was in the 80s. So I'm excited to return. But what we are here tonight about is the reason we are contracted with the Parks and Recreation Services unit. And this is, we've been hired to develop a transition plan with the department. And just to give a kind of update or a reminder on what a transition plan is, government agencies and anyone that receives federal funding is required to follow the ADA guidelines and as well as the Title II of the Americans with Disability Act, which requires the transition plan to provide an outline for achieving ADA compliance. And that's compliance in removal of architectural barriers, and also the inclusion of persons with disabilities in programs, services, all that government agencies such as the Ann Arbor Parks and Rec Department offer to their community. And that kind of answers the second question of who needs a transition plan. And that is any agency with over 50 employees and that provides these services to their community. We will kind of get into what the transition plan looks like and what it has to have. And the minimum of what it has to have is what you see on the screen now. We have to conduct a self-evaluation of facilities, programs, services, and activities. And we're actually going to be starting that next week. Our team is coming up to Michigan Monday, and we'll start evaluating the parks, and we'll be going through taking measurements, taking pictures, collecting data, and this will be the first visit. I believe we have 4 scheduled. Ann Arbor has
a large selection of parks, which is very exciting for the community. And you guys are lucky to have so many parks. So we will be visiting all of them. We'll be visiting all the facilities, the ice arenas, the offices of the Parks and Rec Department, any facilities that Parks and Rec operates out of. We'll be taking a look at those in the next couple months. So we're excited. So we'll conduct a self-evaluation. We will be gathering public input. That is an important piece of this process as well. And that's one that we will kind of dive into a little more here in a little bit. But we are kind of hoping that you guys can assist us with that, with your outreach, with your knowledge of the community leaders, gathering support to come to our public open houses. That would be really great. We need to provide an outline of the methods to be utilized to remove architectural barriers, as well as any barriers to any programs that are offered. We'll determine a schedule for taking the necessary steps to achieve compliance. And this is, us sitting down with Ann Arbor staff and determining, what kind of timeline do they want to assign to this goal to come into compliance. And then we'll work backwards from there. And then we also need to work with staff to designate an official responsible for the implementation of the plan. And this is also called an ADA coordinator. It's required to have one, to have a name associated with the position, so that if a community member had a question, they would know exactly who to contact. So we'll kind of get into the scope of the project. Like I said, the self-assessment, self-evaluation, this is facilities and parks, program services and activities. We've started our departmental interviews, which is just interviewing some of the city staff and talking about their position, what they do for the community, how they serve the community, their knowledge of ADA. And this is helpful to us in determining further in the process. We have training for staff, for the Parks and Recreation staff. And so this helps us kind of get a snapshot of where they are, and then we can take our steps from that position and move forward with our educational material. Again, we'll collect public input, and then we will start, after we've gathered all our data from our site visits, and our review of the programs and services, we will start to cobble together this document where we will, have our schedule to achieve access. And the final document will also include, in general terms, it'll include budget information on how much these solutions may cost, so that the Parks and Rec Department can actually plan for and budget for in future cycles, what areas they want to focus on and start fixing, if that's the word. A little note about public input. It is a mandatory component of the transition plan. Getting local input is very important with, kind of working with staff and with the community and figuring out what their prioritization may be on some of these aspects, especially with physical barriers, and programs. Some programs are just very popular and they will always be at the top of the list. I worked in Parks and Rec departments for over like 13 years. And when somebody asked what is most important to them, I will tell you that trails was number one, and number two was, goodness, I don't even remember, but trails was always number one or number two. And so, every community has their number one passion. And so it is helpful for us to learn that as we go through this process. And the best way for us to learn that is with these two public open houses that we are going to have. And so, we will kind of hope to utilize you guys and your outreach and your knowledge of the community and who would be best to for us to reach out to in order to have a full and representative group of who's coming through and who can participate in our public open houses. So hopefully you guys can assist us with that. The vision for this transition plan is that having the plan in place will allow the City of Ann Arbor Parks and Rec Department to meet Title II requirements of the ADA. It will enhance existing programs and services that are offered, and improving accessibility and improving inclusion are just great features for any community. And it definitely, all of these will benefit the community, in our opinion. And so we are pleased to assist Ann Arbor in going through this process. And that is our very quick spiel. If you have any questions, please let us know. And Shui and I are both here tonight or this afternoon. I keep thinking it's later, but it's not. If you guys have any questions, please, now is the time. And anytime during this process, we are available if you have any questions.
Thank you so much. I had a quick one. What, just in terms of the public comment that you mentioned, what approximate number and timing of the public comment, or what's the best sort of mechanism that you've found in sort of gathering public comment? Do you send out a survey? Do you like to have meetings instead? And sort of what the timing of that looks like with regard to the report you're putting together?
Yeah, so what works best, and hopefully Ann Arbor is kind of opening their meetings. I'm not sure if you guys have any COVID requirements in place still for meetings, but in-person meetings are great, and we hope to utilize that as well as an online survey. We'll be working with the Ann Arbor public relations team and getting utilizing the city's outreach, their social media, their calendar, everything they do that helps them reach out to the community. We will be taking advantage of to get our public house item into people's inboxes and on their devices. And so we'll have an online survey as well that people can be directed to. But we will be there in person unless anything comes up, COVID related wise, that we could not have an in-person meeting. We find that the double, the online survey and the in-person works best.
Sounds great. I think we have a number of questions. I see Anne and then Erica.
Hi, I'm wondering if there's any opportunity, because we have a survey that's out right now for the Parks Department and in our 5-year planning, the pros survey. And is there any opportunity to coordinate with that feedback, or do we need to keep these two things separate?
We are aware that the department is going through an update for their pros plan, which is great timing in our opinion. They both go kind of hand in hand. As far as merging the surveys, we have talked about that. We haven't had anything concrete yet. The ADA is kind of a little more specific than some of the questions asked in the park survey, and sometimes making a survey longer just to have one survey may be a little detrimental. But we are open to working with Hillary and Scott and figuring out the best way to get that survey out to your community for sure.
Erica?
I'm sure you'll be brainstorming a whole list of groups and agencies to reach out to, but I was just curious if the Disability Commission was going to get a presentation as well.
Yes, they absolutely are. I believe their May meeting has been canceled. We were going to have this same presentation. I believe their meeting is usually tomorrow night. We were informed that it's canceled in May, so we'll be talking to them in June.
Thanks.
Other questions for Eileen or Jesus? Or Scott? Oh, Councilmember Grand.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I do think that we still probably a little different than in Texas, probably have more restrictive COVID requirements for in-person meetings. And I think it's going to, as my, colleague Erica said, I think it's really important that we reach out to different groups in the community and obviously make these meetings as safe and accessible as we can. And then, I was glad when you first mentioned the public input being, fairly exclusive to the meetings. I was concerned about that, especially since you're trying to get at issues of accessibility. And I'm assuming since we're reaching out to these communities, that there are extra attention to accommodations in the surveys that we're doing. Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah, I can let Chewy answer that question if you like.
Yes, so we, pre-COVID, we were used to doing everything in person, like the traditional open house at a library somewhere. And post-COVID, as we started doing more virtual meetings, we found that to be a good balance, because what we found specifically from the community, people with disabilities, is that some people preferred to do the virtual just because it facilitated travel. They didn't have to mess with travel, mass transit, or whatever it might be. They also didn't have to get out on the elements, which for some people was a challenge. The counter to that is that some people didn't have access to technology. And so we found that doing the both models, where we have the traditional in-house, open house style, where you can come in and give us your input, and then mirroring exactly the same information in an online survey, provides people with that option. Some people are passionate and want to come tell us face-to-face what they think, and that's great. And others prefer to do it online via survey, and we'll be able to accommodate both. We also will have a website available where we'll be directing people to that website for more information and where they can take the survey. And we are going out of our way to ensure the website's fully accessible and that we have the alternate forms of communication if requested.
Okay, thank you so much. Other questions? Okay, we really appreciate the presentation. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. We look forward to working with you guys.
Thanks. I think with that, we'll turn to section 7 of our agenda. And first, I'm thrilled that we have a report from our permanent Parks and Recreation Manager, Mr. Josh Landfeld, who we heartily congratulate after an exhaustive search. We were so thrilled to all learn recently that Josh had the permanent post now of Parks and Recreation Manager. So I'll turn it over to you, Josh. Congratulations and thanks so much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the introduction and the opportunity to lead this department and commission moving forward. Really, really excited about it and can't wait to get started. So now that I've been hired, one of the first things on my list is to get the job description for my former position updated and make sure that we can fill that one. So that's going to be going along right now. Staff is still a little short staffed with that transition, but at least we've got one step forward, which we're very excited about. So the budget went to council last night. It was passed as provided. The kind of the major things that we spoke about last month was the temporary salary increases, which was the primary impact for the upcoming year that passed, as well as a variety of positions for NAP, the livery overhire, and the adopt a park position. So we are working with staff and HR to get those positions figured out and finalized, and we'll begin to do postings when appropriate for those. Another program that will impact parks is a volunteer snow removal program that did get supported. Parks is very supportive of that program and is looking to find ways to be involved with it. It does sit outside of normal parks funding, But with our expertise and volunteerism, and then obviously the work we do in snow shoveling and plowing throughout the city, we figure we can support if and how necessary once that pilot is finalized. Typically around this time of year, there is we talk about the park fairness resolution. This year, we are not receiving a parks fairness resolution, considering the increase of our budget was about 10% over prior year. The rest of the city didn't do that as well. So not surprisingly, there was not a fairness resolution, but definitely excited about the increase of the salaries because it has made staffing a lot easier this summer than it has been in the past. So I'm very excited about the support that council gave to our budget and all the support that each of you provided in moving that forward. So now we just got to meet that budget in the next year. So it is that time of year where we are opening facilities. Fuller Pool opened this past Sunday, which is very exciting. We've been opening up a couple weeks early to meet the demand and the need. And hopefully we will continue to have nice weather as opposed to normally we have 50 and cold and cloudy. So we're excited about that. Vets and Bureau pools open up Memorial Day weekend. The reason we didn't have the ice arena recap is because they're busy working on staff and getting the pools ready. So they'll be back again in the future. Deliveries are up and running. Both Argo and Gallup are up. Huron River Day was this past Sunday. Was a beautiful day for it. Great event. And the golf courses, now that it has turned sunny and warm, are busy every day and full. So that is what we're kind of working on in the Parks Department. As we all are aware, last year we made the change from Winchell Park to Lockett Park, Dr. Harold J. Lockett Park. We will have a renaming ceremony for that on June 25th. A more formal invitation will come, but roughly about 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturday the 25th is when we'll be holding that event. A couple planning items. Met last week with MDOT. They are starting a planning and environmental linkage study for the Barton and M14 interchange. That interchange is near to an awful lot of parkland and property that may be impacted. So we're early on in that conversation. They are starting the study. They are going to actually have an in-person public meeting or opportunity to speak on June 8th at the farmers market. So opportunity where there are people to ask questions. They will also have some virtual meetings as well, and I will pass those along to the group to provide information about that. Additionally, today at noon, there was a virtual public meeting about Scheffler Park and the Fire Station 4 project and its potential impacts at Scheffler. The fire chief came a couple months ago to talk about that project. Park staff were at the meeting, presented 3 options for replacing a half basketball court that would need to be removed for a new full basketball court on site. All of the attendees were supportive of the project and agreed on the preferred location, which is over the existing roller hockey court. We plan to have fire back at a future PAC meeting to provide more information about that process. But since that meeting did take place, wanted to let everyone know. Last thing, the pros plan was talked about, and as we speak to it, I mean, the survey is still open. The idea of the survey has always been to be much more broad and general in our questions that we ask, and then utilize various focus groups or different conversations to get more specific about the information that we received. But the survey is still open. Last I checked, we were just under 900 responses, which is great. We still have about 3 or 4 weeks to go. We continue to push that out. And we are also beginning the process to set up focus group meetings in the coming weeks or months. And so we will reach out to this group about having a specific PAC driven focus group to talk about the pros plan. So lots of things going on at the moment, but we are moving ourselves forward. So any questions, comments?
Thanks so much, Josh.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Moving on to a report from the Recreation Advisory Commission, RAC. Larry, is there a report this time?
Yes. So the RAC met on May 10th last week. So I had a couple of updates from that meeting. We had 3,000 people register for summer camps this year, which is very good. We had 2,500 spring sport registrations. We'll also be hiring additional childcare workers for more programs in the fall. In addition to the RAC group, we also had guests from the city. I see Hillary is here today. She joined us last week at RAC, and we got an update on the pros plan, and we're asked to provide input from RAC, which we did. And I think probably the most common theme from that discussion was a request to make every effort to make the parks as inclusive as possible. There were some suggestions to ask neighborhood centers like Peace Neighborhood and Community Action Network to provide input to that. Really looking to find communities who may not be as active today as we'd like them to be. And the last thing we did, we honored Glenn Nelson, who's been a very long time member of RAC and other city activities. And he was rotating off of RAC after that meeting. That's it.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Larry? All right, let's move on to reports from other relevant commissions and committees. Anne, let's see, we've got the Environmental Commission and the Bike Committee as well. Anything from either of those groups?
Yes. So Environmental Commission, we had a meeting about 3 weeks ago, and nothing there that was discussed was really parks related. The Bike Subcommittee met yesterday and went over our plan. So the primary goal of the committee is to come forth with a report to PAC on bike recreation needs going forward. So our plan, there's 4 primary topics that we're going to cover. We're going to evaluate community preferences around bike recreation. We are going to provide guidelines for the development and maintenance of a pump track. We are going to develop best management practices and policies for bike recreation amenities. So any assets that we have around bikes, how we're going to manage and maintain those. And then finally, we're going to provide some guidelines for community involvement and volunteering stewardship of our bike amenities. So that is our plan going forward. We hope to have our first report to PAC at the September 20th meeting. And we should have a draft report at that time if we can maintain our schedule. So we'll see how it goes this summer. It'll be a busy summer. But the nice thing is that the committee has some folks on it who are very passionate about bike recreation and are very motivated to get things moving along. So I think if any group has a chance of hitting their schedule, it's this one.
Yeah, we're very excited about just kind of putting together this packet, this report that kind of leads us into the future, so that anytime we have a new amenity or a new idea, we don't have to come back to, well, how do we do this with bikes and with the maintenance and things. So kind of just creating this living document that at least tells us what we should try to do on a regular basis to move it forward. So it's a good working group.
Sounds great. Other questions for Anne? And I know, Steve, we've got Center of the City as well. All right, go ahead, Steve.
All right. Well, thank you for asking. Yes, the center of the city, Council of the Commons proceeds apace. We are coming to the next PAC meeting, so be excited and ready for that. We're coming to the June meeting to give what I'll call an informational presentation about the committee, about how we've organized ourselves and what we're doing and sort of next steps. The idea is to get feedback from this group, to get questions, what's important from the Parks Commission perspective, and then to start this discussion about sort of moving forward together for these processes and bringing together what's already happening in some of these park spaces with what is desired to be happening in some of these park spaces. So then don't be shocked if I contact you in the next 2, 3, 4 weeks in between now and the next meeting to get your questions in advance so that the presentation is more able to address some of those topics that are on the top of your mind. So that's what's coming next from the Council of the Commons.
Yeah, that sounds great. I think that would help kind of structure the discussion a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Steve, I know that we've talked briefly, but probably that week before, we can find time to sit down with the group and with staff to just kind of go over the presentation to make sure we're all on the same page, so I can support and discuss from the staff side as well. That'd be great. So
perfect. Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
All right, other questions for Steve? Okay, well, we'll move on to new business now. Got a couple items today. The first one is a resolution to recommend Barton Pump Station valve improvements through Barton Nature Area and Bird Hills Nature Area. And this goes hand in hand. It's kind of 9A and 9B together. It goes hand in hand with the water main project in Bird Hills. And I believe we have Emily Schlanderer and some folks from Stantec to talk to us about that. I hope. Here they go. All right, perfect. Hi, Emily.
Hi. My first time joining something like this. Took a minute. Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks, Josh, for helping me through the process to this point. I don't have a formal presentation or anything. This is kind of a carryover from a presentation that you may have seen about last fall by Chris Elmbass with Stantec. So joining me today is Ken Jewison from Stantec. He's the project manager. I'm the project manager on the city side. So this, the Barton Pump Station Valve Replacement Project is it's a CIP project that was deemed eligible for drinking water SRF funding, that loan program. So it's underway and it's replacing several valves in the pump station that are very old, 70 years. About 70 years old are some of the oldest ones. And this pump station pumps from the Barton Pond, which is created by the dam right there, and pumps to the water treatment plant, provides about 80 to 85% of the treated drinking water here at the plant. Most of that project will be contained within the fence line there, but there's a valve being replaced just outside of the pump station, which will be in Barton Nature Area, because the pump station is essentially nestled in the nature area. So that's one of the items, either 9A or 9B, and then the other one is throughout the Bird Hills trail area. The two transmission mains that run from the pump station to the plant run essentially under those trails. And there's work identified as part of a previous study, which is what Chris Ellenbass had presented on, to install air relief valves in 6 locations. So that work is not really going to happen until fall, but there's some exploratory work the contractor needs to do to kind of really stake his exact work areas and get that figured out. And that's slated for this summer. So the resolution describes these 2 different durations. There's a preliminary June 2022 effort for just some exploratory digging that will be short duration, and then the fall work will be a longer duration to actually do the valve replacement work and the ARV installation.
Thanks, Emily. Does anyone have questions for Emily or Ken? The resolution is contained in your materials. If there are no questions, could I have a motion on the resolution?
I'll motion to approve.
Thanks, Paige.
A
Is there a
second motion.
Second by Anne. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? No? All right, the motion to pass the motion to approve the resolution passes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Emily. I appreciate you
Emily.
coming.
Thank you for having me.
Moving on, we'll go to item 9C, which is a resolution to amend approving a contract with, I'm not sure how to pronounce this, Garris Construction for repairs and renovations to the Vandermeer Park bridges. And I think in particular, the vehicle bridge we're talking about. And I think Hillary is here to take us through that one.
All right, sorry about that. I had to be added right back in. All right, I'm going to share my screen here really quickly and just have a couple of slides to share with you all. So the Vandermeer Park bridges. So this is actually the vehicle bridge and the pedestrian bridge. So it's a little confusing because it kind of seems like one structure, but technically they're two structures that are adjacent to each other. And so this probably sounds familiar because we've talked about this a lot over the last few years. So just a quick recap. In 2018, we had some bridge inspections done across our system. And, you know, from the areas that we could see, we could tell there was deterioration. And so based on those inspections, we put repairs out to bid at several park bridges. The cost came back higher than we expected. So the Vandermeer Bridge scope was pulled out to be postponed. And then in 2020, when we were repairing some of the other park bridges and replacing a few decking boards, we were able to do an additional inspection where when the boards were removed, we were able to see some of the areas that weren't exposed during the initial inspection. And we realized that the condition was actually worse than we originally anticipated. So you probably remember just this past year, I came to you with a contract to have our engineers update a set of construction documents to put this scope of work back out to bid. And so that's what we did. So then this year we received our first bids, but now they're construction proposals for this scope of work. And just as a reminder, you know, the scope of work, it's pretty straightforward. It'll be replacing the existing wood decking on both bridges, removing portions of the existing steel stringers, so the parts that have deterioration, like shown in the pictures, and replacing them with new galvanized stringers, cleaning, coating some of the existing floor beams, placing some additional guardrails and backup rails, and then replacing the existing handrails as well. And so we actually received 4 proposals. So proposals from 4 different contractors, which was really good. But the pricing was, we had a really wide spread. So it ranged from just over $500,000 to just over $1.4 million. So between those 4 proposals. And so back in 2019, you know, construction costs were a lot lower than they are today. And that scope of work back then was around $400,000. Our revised engineering estimates kind of expected it to come in around $700,000. So we were really happy to see, you know, the low bid number especially. So, but clearly there was a wide range in costs. And so with this new process, you know, it's not just the bidding and the bid price, but it's actually scoring the proposal based on these different qualifications that are set by city policy. So each of the 5 sections has a potential of 20 points for a total of 100 points. Each section has specific things that they ask us to look for, but the overall categories are qualifications, experience and accountability, workplace safety, workforce development, social equity and sustainability, and then schedule of pricing or cost. And so when we went through and scored each of these 4 companies on those 5 different sections, this is the scores that we came up with. So we were happy to see that Gerace Construction, who was the low bid from a pricing standpoint, also received the highest score, which is great news because their fee is within our budget for the project. And so at this point, staff were recommending awarding a contract to Gerace Construction for the amount of $505,567 for these repairs and renovations to the Bannerman Park bridges. We are asking for a slightly higher construction contingency. So typically we ask for about 10%, but as with the last round of park bridge repairs, because there's so much that you just can't see until you really get in there, we're asking for a slightly higher contingency amount, 15%, so just over $75,000. And that is only used for approved contract change orders. So they're reviewed by the city administrator and only used if there's things that come up that weren't expected. And so the total amount we're requesting to have approved is $581,402. And we do have funding available in our FY22 park maintenance and capital improvement millage. So it's pretty straightforward, but I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Anne, go ahead.
Hey, have you worked with Gerace previously, or are they new to you?
They're new to us in parks, but they've actually worked with our water treatment folks in the past. So they actually do a lot of dam work. They do bridge work as well. They're, I believe, on the MDOT pre-qualified list of contractors for bridge work. And then one of the reasons that we think their cost is so much lower compared to some of the competitors is that they're a large enough company that they actually have steel fabrication in-house. So they actually are able to make some of these steel components themselves. So yes, the water treatment folks said, these guys can definitely do the scope of work. They're good to work with. So we're happy to hear that recommendation.
Yeah, and then my just one more question, which is about the timing of the work, given that that's a very popular walking path in the city.
Yeah. So I believe we're aiming for the fall. So kind of aiming for the time of year when it'll be a little less highly used, but obviously there's never a great time for this work. So, given just the lead time for fabricating and needing to order all the materials, I don't believe it would happen this summer. So I'm kind of thinking fall, maybe into early winter.
And I see Councilmember Briggs.
So what is there going to be access across the bridge, like maintained on one side of the bridge, at least for non-motorized usage when the work is being done?
So we looked at that, and because the park actually has access from the south, kind of like near where the boathouses are, you can actually park down there and walk up, from the south end of the park. It just makes the most sense to just get in there, close them for a shorter period of time and get the work done. Because trying to maintain one side, you just lose some efficiency. So they will be closed, closed access at that north end of the park during this construction.
How long will that closure be? How long will the closure be for?
Yeah, I believe it was a few weeks, like maybe like 3 to 4 weeks that it would be closed.
So I think it would be worthwhile to consider if non-motorized access could be maintained, or it could be reduced to a shorter period of time. I mean, this isn't just it's obviously a heavily used park and path, but it's also incredibly important non-motorized connection in the city in terms of for folks going across, or at least identifying, how big of a barrier it's going to be for folks trying to get to work, using that as a connected corridor. I don't know if there's a way to identify that. I know there are different ways to route, but that would be my concern with closing for such a long period of time.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. Yeah, we can talk to the contractors and see if there's ways we can phase the construction. I guess, and also just making sure that it would still be safe, just because the bridges are so close to each other. Just being able to be sure that we could maintain like a safe walking surface while the work's going on adjacent to it. So yeah, it's definitely something we can work with them to see if there's opportunities that wouldn't increase costs substantially.
Yeah, we'll also make sure that we have any detours available because of the opportunities. It may not be convenient, but we'll definitely have the conversations with the contractor and see what we can do, understanding that need.
Yeah. For something like this, it seems like it might be worthwhile posting it ahead of, substantially ahead of time for both ways and giving people an opportunity to start trying out new routes to work.
Yeah, definitely.
Steve.
Thanks. So this isn't really a question, more of a comment, but in my years on PAC, I don't think I've ever seen a 15% contingency. I don't think I've seen anything other than 10%. I understand what you said, and I think it maybe makes sense for this project, and I'm planning to vote for it, but I don't want to vote for it without making this comment that I don't want it to become a habit that we have these larger and larger contingencies. I see it makes sense for this particular project, but I would be very wary of the slippery slope.
Yeah, definitely noted. And it's something I think we've done just when there's opportunities for maybe more unforeseen things to come up. So if something's like a straightforward pathway repaving, that would be a typical 10%. But where we've done the 15% in the past is things like the last round of park bridge repairs, or maybe like an older building structure where you don't really know what you're getting into until you start opening up the walls, and then you might find asbestos or other things that weren't apparent beforehand. But yeah, definitely noted. We try to be judicious where we use that.
Yeah. And I will add that one of the things that, and I appreciate the comment, what we can also do is that as we look at bids where we know that there may be some needs for contingencies, seeing what else we can add into the bid process and into that to see what we can add to the initial contract as opposed to after the contract. So we can continue to figure out how we can do that better. So
thank you.
Other questions for Hillary? Thanks so much, Hillary. So we have resolution on the table. It's in your packet. Do we have a motion to approve the resolution?
I would move.
A motion by Anne. Is there a second? Second by Steve. Thanks, Steve. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? No. All right, the motion carries. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And I think our final resolution of the afternoon is one to recommend accepting a Fair Food Network grant for Ann Arbor Farmers Market for $45,000 and appropriate funds. Josh, this one's to you.
Yep. So this is an annual grant that we received from the Fair Food Network. It is for the Double Up Food program at the farmers market, which in essence matches up to $20 per person per day for customers using SNAP to purchase locally grown fruit, vegetables, herbs, and food plants. The Ann Arbor farmers market remains one of the largest in Washtenaw County in regards to the usage we have for it. It is a significant increase over last year. Last year, the grant was for $30,000. As everyone was dealing with the pandemic and stuff, numbers were a little bit lower, but we have seen an increase in demand at the market. So being able to have that additional $15,000 to serve the SNAP participants is really exciting for it. So again, we've been receiving this grant since 2010, I believe. And it's one that is a big component of what we do at the market to ensure that all people have access to locally grown and quality food. So any questions about it?
Exciting to have that. Other questions? Or a motion to approve the resolution?
I'll motion to approve.
Motion by Paige. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Steve. Thank you. Further discussion? Okay. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no? The motion carries. Thanks so much, everyone. We are now on to our second public comment period. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. Kristen, do we have any callers?
There are no callers.
Okay, thank you so much. Communications are in your packet. My understanding is we do not have a closed session today, but we will next month. So beware, be warned. And with that, I believe we can stand adjourned. Do I need a motion to adjourn, or can we just stand adjourned?
You can just be adjourned.
We're adjourned.
You're adjourned.
Thank you, everyone. And once again, huge thanks to Paige, Martin for her guidance. And Paige, we hope to see you back next month.
Yeah,
I might be here.
I think we have to see you back next month, Paige, because it's like a 2-step process.
Yeah.
So
well, I look forward to it.
Thank you, and congrats on your. And Paige was also, nominated and appointed to stay on at the Leslie Science and Nature Center board. So,
congratulations!
I was thrilled to see that and know that even with these idiotic term limits, we're still keeping you in some capacity. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Right.
Well, thanks, everyone.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Rachel,
you.
Lauren.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks, Julie. Bye-bye.